and welcome to this video on young women and anxiety. My name is Mandy Deeks. I'm a psychologist and I have experience in counselling and researching and in education of anxiety and depression in young women. And I'm sitting with Professor Jane Fisher.
Hello.
Hello. Jane is the Chair of Women's Health, the Jean Hales Chair of Women's Health at Monash, and has a number of years' experience also counselling, a clinical psychologist with a strong research and education background as well. Welcome, Jane.
Thank you.
So, Jane, we know that adolescence is a very important time in terms of development in a young woman's life, and probably a really important time to talk about worries and anxieties. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with you that adolescence or the teenage years are very important developmentally in all sorts of domains, but they're also the years in which emotional life develops. And young women can begin to experience for the first time worries among other emotional experiences that they might not have had before. And one of their tasks as they grow is to begin to be able to understand their worries, to acquire a language to describe them, and then to be able to learn to manage them themselves, or at least be able to talk to other people about them when they're finding them difficult to manage.
And I don't know about you, but when a young woman comes to see me, sometimes it can be hard to find the words, can't it, to express what they're feeling. They're feeling concerned about something, but they're not sure how important it is or if they should be worried about it. And there's lots of different issues also that they might be worrying about.
Yeah, and I think the broad term for this is that every person needs to acquire over their young adulthood what's called emotional literacy. So a capability to understand and name emotional states, feelings, emotional needs, but that when we're young we haven't generally acquired this capacity. And of course we're very dependent in particular on our families to assist us. And not every family is well equipped to assist a young person to acquire emotional literacy. And in addition to acquiring the language to name emotions and experiences, we also have to learn to recognise the effects these have on our behaviour. So to make the connection between how we think about experiences, how they make us feel, and then what they lead us to do. And when we're young, sometimes the behaviour can happen without us necessarily having had a good understanding of what's gone before it. So I think in particular when we're young, we have to become familiar with understanding our thoughts and reactions, how those affect us emotionally, and then what they lead us to do.
And we often have, sometimes I call it faulty thinking or unhelpful thinking, don't we?
Often. And I think that's especially common when we're young, when we can have thoughts that are out of proportion to the situation. So it's important in this conversation that we acknowledge that everybody worries. It's a normal part of day-to-day life to be concerned about our personal situation, our needs, the things that we want that we don't yet have, the things that we aspire to that seem to be extremely difficult to contemplate achieving. But then to realise that the task as we mature is to learn to turn those into what I call a mobilising factor. So anxiety can be paralysing. It can cause you really to avoid the things that are difficult for you. But really what we need is to be able to turn it around and say, because this is something I feel uncertain about, or because it's something I don't know how to do, I have to do more of it, not less of it. So that we have to become accomplished, I think, at facing the things that worry us very squarely and directly.
And it can be hard, can't it? Because
Very hard.
when you have those thoughts and they cause these horrible, they are quite horrible feelings. You
Yeah.
know, your heart might be racing.
Yeah.
You start to breathe really quickly,
Yes.
and all you really want to do is run away or
That's right.
escape.
Avoid the situation.
That's right.
Yeah.
So to think that actually you need
Yeah.
to stay and face it.
Exactly.
It
And
kind
in
of
fact
goes
do-
against you,
do
doesn't
more
it?
of it. It
That's
does.
right. That's right.
And this is why I think we're especially dependent on our families and on our teachers to assist us to do the things that are difficult. So if in our family the tendency is to say, oh, well, you're worried about going to the school dance, don't go, that's actually very unhelpful. What would be very helpful is for a young woman to be able to say, I feel really anxious about going to this function, I don't know anyone, no one will talk to me, and for her parents to rehearse with her how she will manage it, not to avoid it. So I think as a general rule, avoidance is very bad for anxiety, being active is very good for it.
Yes. And what other kinds of things would you suggest that you can do for yourself if you've got...
Well, I think you can begin to recognise patterns of thinking. And one of the patterns of thinking that is quite common as a source of worry, and then as something that can make worry worse, is always to regard opportunities as potentially sources of humiliation or embarrassment. So to fear the worst, really. So rather than being able to turn it around and say, well, this will be difficult, but it won't be a disaster. So there's potential often, I think, to approach things rather pessimistically. That's not helpful. Or to have what might be called exaggerative thinking. So to believe that things are potentially going to be much worse or much more difficult than could possibly be managed. And this is called catastrophising. So rather than framing things as a difficult event that can be overcome, it's responded to as though it's really a disaster. So if I fail the music exam, that's the end ever of my possible career as a musician, rather than saying, well, if that happens it would be regrettable and I would feel sadness, but I would have another go and I would do more rehearsal or I would get more tutoring and so I could do it next time. So in general, it's very helpful to learn in adolescence what's called a problem-solving approach to life. Always to regard things as difficulties that can be solved, not as disasters.
Yes, and the good thing is that as part of the website, in the toolkit, there is a page, a tool for problem solving. So,
which is a really good resource, just an excellent resource for young women, older women to go and practice doing this.
Thank you so much, Jane.
Well, thank you for inviting me to talk to you about this.
Oh, it's wonderful to hear your words of wisdom because it is such an important time in young women's life. And I think, as you quite rightly said, to get in at that time and to understand how your thinking affects you and know that the most important thing that you have to do is face that fear or that thing that causes you the anxiety is fabulous. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for watching the video. For more information for any of the toolkits, go to the toolkit section and you'll see lots of different things you can do if you're worried or if you're struggling with anxiety. Thank you.